Welcome to the Tech Talks by Microsoft EMEA. My name is Manfred Helber, and today we are talking about Windows Admin Center update. Windows Admin Center is the web-based graphical management tool for Windows Server, Windows Client, and Azure Stack HCI solutions. And we will have a look about the architecture, about the tools inside the Windows Admin Center, and a small comparison to the traditional tools we used. When you're watching live this Tech Talk session, you can use the chat on the platform where you are watching for your questions. So feel free to send in your questions via the comments on the YouTube stream or the LinkedIn stream and ask your questions, give your feedback about Windows Admin Center and about the latest version we are talking about, because we are talking about Windows Admin Center 2020-08. It's a pre-release version of the next version of Windows Admin Center, and we have several new features in there, and we will focus on exactly these new features. Before we start with the live demo and the live demo topics, a few words about the architecture of Windows Admin Center. The idea is to replace the traditional management tools. So when we look at a Windows Server operating system, here, for example, the situation is that we have tools like the Server Manager. If you ever worked with Windows Server in the past few versions, you will be familiar with the Windows Server Manager. So we have a dashboard view, we have the local server management, we have the ability to add remote servers. In the section All Servers, I can add additional servers in my network, in my domain, to manage them remotely. And in the rest of this navigation pane here on the left-hand side, we have tools like file and storage services, Active Directory, and whatever. So we have additional tools. On the main screen, we have information about the name of our server, IP address configuration, time zone, and so on. This is traditionally Server Manager. We have also traditionally things like Active Directory users and computers. There's a Hyper-V Manager. So for every tool, for every role, for every feature, we have a dedicated management console we used in the past. Windows Admin Center is different. Windows Admin Center is a web-based portal. You can see I'm accessing my Windows Admin Center here via URL. It's a local URL, but it's an URL I'm accessing here. It's a secured connection. And this Windows Admin Center runs in my local network. It's a secure connection. And the idea is to add remote servers in the network to manage them here. For sure, my own server, this one here, I'm actually logged into this D201-WAX01 machine. This server here is also available in the Windows Admin Center, and it would be possible to install a Windows Admin Center on each server to manage the server locally. This is possible. This is supported for most server scenarios. But the initial idea is to have a central management instance where we add the servers in the network that should be managed. When we have a local instance of Windows Admin Center and we add remote servers, we don't have any software installation on this remote server, so we don't need any agent for Windows Admin Center, because every server that has remote management enabled, and this is default when you deploy a Windows Server 2022, 2019, 2016, then we have the situation that the remote management is enabled by default. And as long as we keep this enabled, the remote management via Windows Admin Center will work. So this few basics about the Windows Admin Center. We will come back to the demo in a few minutes. So we mentioned it's a web-based technology. It runs on premises. It brings its own web server, so we don't have to install complex things like Internet Information Server or SQL Server databases in the backend. It's a small gateway web server, no IIS, no SQL Server, Active Directory is optional. I would recommend you to have an Active Directory where the Windows Admin Center is connected to for easier authentication, but it's not required. And we access the Windows Admin Center via a client browser. So Edge or Chrome are the supported browsers. I would recommend you to use the Edge browser. This is exactly the browser I had in my demo environment here. I'm using the Microsoft Edge browser. You can see this here. It's a Microsoft Edge in the latest version, and I can work on these machines. We'll have a look at the configuration options in a few seconds. It's possible to publish this Windows Admin Center for external access to the internet. So you can have a secure connection from external to your Windows Admin Center instance, but this is not required. The Windows Admin Center is a download. It's not included on the Windows Server installation media, but it's a free download, so we don't have to buy a license. It's included in our Windows Server licensing, so we don't need any additional license. For the managed connections, no agent installation is required. This is important. But when we have a previous Windows Server version, I mentioned Windows Server 2022, 2019, 2016. When we have 2012 R2 or a previous version, we need the Windows Management Framework 5.1. This is not a specific Windows Admin Center agent, but we have to install something, exactly this Windows Management Framework here, to enable these previous target servers for management via Windows Admin Center. Please keep in mind, Windows Server 2012 and 2012 R2 will be end of support in October 2023. So it's less than 1 year that these servers remain supported, and so maybe you should not use them any longer today already, or you should plan your upgrade to a newer version till October next year. So the Windows Admin Center itself, it's very flexible where it can be installed. It can be installed in Azure or Azure Stack HCI. This Azure option is interesting, and we will have a look at the Azure option in a live demo if we have enough time today. We can use it on Azure Stack HCI, on Windows Server. It can also be installed on Windows 10 or 11. The installation or the platform where Windows Admin Center runs decides about the options I have inside the Windows Admin Center. For example, when I'm running Windows Admin Center in the Azure portal, it's possible to manage the local servers. They are directly connected. It's a real great opportunity or option for server management. But we don't have all the features in the Windows Admin Center there. We have a little reduced feature set. So for example, we don't have any vendor-specific extensions. So we only have the tools that Microsoft directly provides. When we run Windows Admin Center or Windows 10 or 11, we have a dedicated user mode. This means that the Windows Admin Center portal can be opened from the local machine, but it's not configured as a gateway server where we can connect with several Windows Admin Center administrators to this single machine. The gateway mode is configured on Windows Server. Doesn't matter which version we use. Installed can be Windows Admin Center beginning with Windows Server 2016. And there we have a gateway configuration. It's configured automatically. That means that 10, 20, 50, how many you have, administrators can use the Windows Admin Center on this server to manage other servers in the network. And these other servers can be Azure Stack HCI, Windows Server. This can also be Windows clients, Windows 10 or Windows 11. So this is what you should should keep in mind about the Windows Admin Center configuration. And regarding the deployment scenarios, what we will use in the rest of the live demos today is to use the Windows Admin Center on a dedicated management server. This dedicated management server is my preferred option. So I have a server where I have the Windows Admin Center installed and where I manage other servers in the network. It's also possible to have the Windows Admin Center installed on a Windows client. This is an interesting option if you are an IT service professional and you go to different customers and you want to bring your Windows Admin Center instance with you, then you can use this option. Many customers are thinking about, especially in smaller scenarios, are thinking about installing Windows Admin Center onto a managed node, but this is not my recommended option. Today, for example, it's not supported to install Windows Admin Center on a domain controller. And we have several scenarios where we see side effects when a Windows Admin Center is installed together with other services on a specific machine. The fourth option is interesting when you have a huge environment where you have several administrators that want or should use the Windows Admin Center to manage systems in the network, because must imagine when you have my preferred option here, the option number 1, when your Windows Admin Center is not available, then all the services on the target machines remain up and running. They don't have any impact because the Windows Admin Center is not running. But your administrators are not able any longer to access the Windows Admin Center page to configure things on these machines. When the Windows Admin Center is high available, this is option, let's say, number 2, then we have the situation if there's an outage of a cluster node that provides the Windows Admin Center, my administrators can still continue working. Option number 2 is much more work to deploy. So you really only should think about this option with a high available Windows Admin Center when you have many, many administrators that are absolutely related to the Windows Admin Center portal. Okay, let's have a little bit, let's see a little bit more insights about the Windows Admin Center and the news in the version 2020.08. As I mentioned, it's a preview version. This results in several things that are preview related. So for example, when you look at the version 2010.2, you will think, okay, this is the version that was released end of last year, or it was in the beginning, 21.10.2. It was at the beginning of this year, of this calendar year. But when you look at the build here, you will see, okay, this is the version 2020.08. This is not 21.10. So this is a future version here. It's not displayed in the version information, but it's readable in the build information. What does this new build bring? When I'm going to the settings of the Windows Admin Center, I have to close here first. When I'm going to the settings of the Windows Admin Center, the whole structure in the settings here is new. This means we have new symbols. It's easier to read. It's easier to address these objects. And we have additional capabilities regarding the settings, regarding the extensions, regarding the internet and proxy configurations. So it's easier to handle. And we have a search option here. This is new. This means you don't have to know each path. So for example, okay, where will I find, when I go to general settings, things like close inactive connections to conserve resources. Things like this, you can search for these topics. You don't have to know the exact path to it. We have the proxy configuration here for those of you that need a proxy or that have a proxy in their network. We have the update configuration. We can, and now it works, automatically update the Windows Admin Center. And here we have the extensions. It's important to understand that Windows Admin Center consists of many, many smaller tools. And these smaller tools are the extensions. So Windows Admin Center 2020.08 preview is, let's say, the framework. It's the platform. Now, for example, we have a management tool for containers. There we have an update. It's not the latest version I have here. Or we have an Azure Stack HCI hardware manager, or we have Azure Kubernetes services. There's an update for it. I have extensions like, let's go to the installed extensions, like Cluster Manager or Cluster Creation. And these extensions are up to date in my environment. When I'm going to cluster creation, cluster management, I can see they are installed. I can see the version that is installed, and I can see the available update. Here for containers and for Kubernetes services, there are updates available. I can just go to install extensions, select the installed extensions, and then, for example, go to containers and update. So I can do this whenever I want to update from version 1.150 to 2.2.0 for the containers. And I can for sure also update the Azure Kubernetes services. I can update this here. And here's another area where you see advantages. If you have a dedicated instance for the Windows Admin Center, a central instance, if you have distributed Windows Admin Center installations on each server node, you have to update the extensions on each server node. For sure, you only need to update the extensions you are using on this specific server. But when I update the extension here, this extension is not automatically updated on the other Windows Admin Center instances. There's a switch where I can say, okay, automatically update extensions. This works for several extensions already, but it's not a guaranteed functionality where you can say, okay, turn on the switch and you never have to care about any additional extensions here. Okay, when I go back to the Windows Admin Center and my server list, we could, for example, look onto a server 13 here. And the server 13 here provides several configuration tools on the left-hand side. What's provided on the left-hand side depends on the roles and services that are installed on this specific server here. And it depends on the extensions I have provided. Here, for example, you see two extensions, a security extension and a time service. We also have extensions from hardware vendors. So if you have a specific hardware, maybe you want to configure storage on this hardware, maybe you want to configure CPU settings and things like this. What's new here for the Windows Admin Center in the preview version 2020-08 is that we can configure the power saving options for a server system. Usually this is something you know from your mobile devices. But when we think about the number of servers we typically have in enterprises, and the amount of power we can save if we, for example, switch the servers in the non-business hours to a hardware profile or power saving profile that reduces the CPU power and the load that is can be put on the CPUs, we can save a lot of energy, and because we save energy, also save money. When I go to the settings here of a server, this is server 13 here, you can see this is a single server, and I have here some file share SMB servers. I have environment variables. I have Azure Arc for servers, power configuration, remote desktop, and role-based access control. Here's something wrong with the icons, because usually we also have new symbols here in the settings. Let's see, okay, it does not work on this Windows Admin Center, but this can be preview related. Let's switch to another Windows Admin Center and let's go to a dedicated host. Let's take this machine here, PS10301. We'll go to the settings. Here we have the new icons. I'm not sure what's wrong with the other Windows Admin Center installation. Here we have an additional section because the server we are looking on here is an Hyper-V host. It's especially an Azure Stack HCI host, but from this point of view, this doesn't make a difference. We have the file shares, we have the environment variables, Azure Arc for servers, the power configuration, I mentioned this, remote desktop, role-based access control, and in the Hyper-V host settings, we have things like general Hyper-V settings, enhanced session mode, NUMA spanning, live migration, storage migration. I often hear about Windows Admin Center that not all the features are in there, and that this is the reason why customers are not so familiar with Windows Admin Center. And this is true for the past. When we look at the first Windows Admin Center versions, we didn't have the settings. So for example, in the first Windows Admin Center version, I had to go to the Hyper-V Manager to switch the default Hyper-V paths. This is now possible in Hyper-V host settings in general. Here we can change this hard disk path and the virtual machine path. In the first versions, we couldn't configure the live migration settings and the storage migration settings. This is now all possible in the Windows Admin Center. So if you tried Windows Admin Center in a previous version and you decided that maybe this is not your tool, then my recommendation is absolutely to give the Windows Admin Center a try again, because the Server Manager and other tools, they will not receive any new features. So the official wording is Microsoft is not developing these tools any longer. But this does not mean that they will be removed from the Windows Server. Today, this is a Windows Server 2022 I'm working on. Sorry, this is a 2019. Okay, this is a 2019, but also in 2022. Let's switch to the other machine here. This machine here, 2022 standard. This is a latest version of Windows Server. We have the Server Manager in there. We have, if this is an Hyper-V host, the Hyper-V Manager, and so on. So all these traditional tools are there. But we will not see any new features in these new tools. It's already today, when you look, for example, at the networking. Here we have something, it's called NIC teaming in the Server Manager. But NIC teaming is not recommended to use any longer in Windows Server 2022 or Azure Stack HCI. So please don't use NIC teaming any longer, because we have a new feature. It's called Switch Embedded Teaming. But the Switch Embedded Teaming is only available via PowerShell or via Windows Admin Center. So the Windows Admin Center is the tool of the future. So the recommendation is to use the Windows Admin Center, to work with the Windows Admin Center and have it installed. Even if I have admit that still we don't have all the features in the Windows Admin Center. So sometimes you will see situations where you have to move to the traditional tools. This is the reason why I install on my Windows Admin Center machines always also the remote server administration tools. So this machine where we are looking, this is not an Hyper-V host. This is not a DNS server or DHCP server. This is not a domain controller. This is my reason why I'm installing it, to have the option to be prepared if I have to manage via some of these older management tools, via some of these previous management tools, if I'm missing a feature in the latest version of Windows Admin Center here. So the recommendation is to install the Windows Admin Center, to use the Windows Admin Center, to use the new tools, because this settings menu is also redesigned in the version 2020-08. So the latest version of the Windows Admin Center has also new symbols here. This is nice to have. This helps me to find the settings faster than the previous version where we only had the text and the non-colored icons, and also a search bar here. And this is really great to have the search bar, because via the search bar we can easily find tools and settings without knowing the exact navigation way. The tools on the left-hand side, I already mentioned this. What I'm seeing here depends first on the installed extensions and second on the services I have on the specific server. So when we look at this Windows Admin Center here, for example, this one here, the Windows Admin Center 01, and we navigate to the server 13, we can see we have things like backup. For sure, we have the installed apps. If we would enable this server, for example, for Hyper-V, we also would see the virtual machines and the virtual switches here. So this is a dynamic view on the tools list. When we switch to a domain controller on the left-hand side, let's go to the Windows Admin Center and go to the server 01. This is my domain controller in this environment. Then I will see the Active Directory tools here, Active Directory and DHCP and DNS. These tools are here available. Let's see, DHCP, DNS, Active Directory. But these tools are only available because I installed the extensions. By default, these extensions are not available here. So what I did, I went to Windows Admin Center settings, extensions, and I installed these extensions from an extension list, because Active Directory, DNS, DHCP, these are preview extensions. They are actually not installed by default. So we have a Windows Admin Center version, and we have a version for each extension. So it's possible to have a Windows Admin Center version that maybe is actually not released in a new version, 21.10.2, but we have a newer version for Active Directory management, or for Hyper-V management, or for DNS management. So this is possible to upgrade single modules in there. So if you have any questions about Windows Admin Center, feel free to bring up your questions in the chat, send in your questions, and I will try to answer them directly here in the show. So when we go back to the server 13, we have another new thing that is possible in the latest version of Windows Admin Center. And in the last Tech Talk, we already talked about Azure Arc enablement. So if you have been in this Tech Talk live session, you already have seen the required steps to enable a server for Azure Arc. We will do this again because for the next step, we need an Azure Arc enabled server. I could use a server I have Arc enabled previously, but Azure Arc is so important. That's the reason why I will show you this again. I will set up this server for Azure Arc. So what happens here? I'm actually connected via a web browser to the machine with the name D01-WAC01. So I'm using a web browser. It doesn't matter from which device. It only has to be a supported web browser. And I'm connecting via the browser to my Windows Admin Center server. In the Windows Admin Center server, I have opened the management view. I'm connected to the D201-SRV13. So I'm using any device with a web browser to connect to the Windows Admin Center to manage server 13 to set up Azure Arc on the server 13. This is important to understand. I'm not enabling the WAC machine for Azure Arc, and I'm not using the server 13 to run the Windows Admin Center. WAC 01 is my Windows Admin Center management machine. Server 13 is my managed target machine, and this machine is enabled for Azure Arc now. I will click on Set up Azure Arc. I will select the Azure sponsorship. I want to have a new resource group. The resource group is TechTalk 21/11/2022 resource group 01. It's in an Azure region, West Europe, and I want to set up this here. This will need a few minutes to enable Azure Arc because, as you have learned in the last Tech Talk, if you attended this Tech Talk, Azure Arc installs a small agent on the target machine. Maybe I'm fast enough. When I open a new Windows Admin Center window here, I'm going to the server 13 and authenticate there. And now I'm going to the programs, install apps. It's already there, but it was installed today. So this agent here is installed when I'm activating the machine for Azure Arc. Let's have a look at another server that is available in Windows Admin Center. This machine here, it's not Arc enabled, but this machine is available in Windows Admin Center. So we don't need an agent for Windows Admin Center management, but we need the agent when the machine should be enabled for Azure Arc. This machine here is now activated for Azure Arc. Now here we can still read setting up Azure Arc for servers, but we have seen the agent was already installed on this machine 13. I'm switching directly to the machine 13. I can also use the URL to use these deep links to jump directly to this list here. So the agent was just installed here for Azure Arc. So for Azure Arc, we need the agent on the machine. For the Windows Admin Center itself, not. So let's have a look at the machine in the Azure portal when the enablement is finished. So here, set up Azure Arc for servers has finished. So what I can do now, I can go to the installed services on the server 13. Installed services. We'll refresh this. Installed services. I can see, okay, this server is enabled for Azure Arc for servers. When I'm going to the settings of the server, I also have an Azure Arc for servers. They can see, okay, I can view the server in Azure. I have a resource group for this machine. I could disconnect the server. I don't want to disconnect the server, but I want to view the server in Azure. So I'm jumping to the Azure portal. They can see, okay, here's my server 13. It's in this resource group, TechTalk 21/11, and so on. It's the D201 server 13. It's Windows Server 2022 standard machine. It's a virtual machine. I have capabilities, recommendations, tutorials. This is all Azure Arc. But what is related to our topic is Windows Admin Center. I can enable Windows Admin Center for exactly this machine in clicking on Setup. Before I click on Install on Setup, let's have a look at this machine again. The server 13 and the installed apps shows 3 entries: Edge, Edge Update, and Azure Connected Machine Agent. I already explained this Azure Connected Machine Agent is the agent for Azure Arc, exactly this one. No additional entry. Now I will go to the Azure portal and say here, I want to use Windows Admin Center not only locally, but also from the Azure portal. Let's click on Setup and install. This takes a few minutes because it installs a special agent for Windows Admin Center. That means the Windows Admin Center portal is now also available in the Azure portal, and it connects to the server on premises via a special Windows Admin Center agent. It looks like a full Windows Admin Center installation but it is only something like an agent. Doesn't make a difference regarding the size because Windows Admin Center has a size of something like 80 megabytes, so it's very small, the installer itself, but it depends on how this Windows Admin Center is configured. So actually, it's still configuring here. Let's have a look at the local machine, what happens here via the Windows Admin Center. And what I want to tell you with this live demo is that Windows Admin Center and Azure Arc, all these technologies have relations to each other. So it's possible to use Windows Admin Center without any Azure and Azure Arc integration. But if you have this integration, you have much more flexibility because you can use the Windows Admin Center from the Azure portal. You can use the policies from the Azure portal. You can use it locally. So you have the full flexibility here. So let's wait for the installation of the Windows Admin Center here. If you ever installed Windows Admin Center, and as I mentioned, it's a free download at Microsoft at AKS aka.ms/download WAC. There you can download the latest version of the Windows Admin Center. But the installation usually takes 5 to 10 minutes. So it's a small installer, but it deploys some services, and this needs a short while. In the Azure portal, we can see, okay, it's still configuring. We have the information about the status also there. And if everything works fine in a few minutes, we only have to configure the, let's say, access policy. So we have to decide who is able to use the Windows Admin Center, who will be allowed to use the Windows Admin Center or to access the Windows Admin Center. And then when we have configured the access control permissions, this specific user is able to use the Windows Admin Center also directly from the Azure portal. Let's check the installed applications again. It's still installing here. Still installing, it's still downloading. You can use the time for your questions if you have questions to bring them up in the chat. And I will use in a few minutes the Windows Admin Center from the Azure portal. If it takes too long, I have a prepared server where the Windows Admin Center is already pre-configured in the Azure portal. So, but maybe we give this installer 2 additional minutes to finish here. So we can use our server 13 where we have seen the full process of the deployment. Important is the text here. We can manage our on-premises environment without any VPN or other direct connections. So the client itself, the managed server, connects to the Azure portal. We don't need a VPN connectivity. We don't need a direct route or express route connectivity. It's really easy configuration. Now we have the Windows Admin Center here. This is exactly what I was waiting for. We are on the server 13 and we have the Windows Admin Center and installed apps. So this here is the agent for WAC. In Azure. This one here is the agent for Azure Arc. And we have no agent for Windows Admin Center on premises. So this is important to understand because this Windows Admin Center here in the installed apps list is the component we need to use the Windows Admin Center from the Azure portal. It's not required if we want to use Windows Admin Center locally. It's not installed when we use Windows Admin Center locally. It's only required because the Azure portal does not have any direct access to our servers. And this is important for all those that are afraid that maybe with technologies like Azure Arc or Windows Admin Center in the Azure portal, we could get into trouble with our personal data or have any security risks in there. Only via this agent, the communication is possible, and this agent has a secure connectivity to the Azure portal. Let's see how this looks in the Azure portal now. When I'm refreshing here my Windows Admin Center entry, I can see here, okay, the setup seems to be finished, but I have a notification. You must be part of the Windows Admin Center Administrator Log On group to connect. Click here to manage access. Okay, let's do so. I click here and I'm jumping to the access control. See this here. And now I have my roles. And in the roles, I have the Windows Admin Center. Can I expand this here? No, it seems not. This is the Windows Admin Center Administrator Log-On group. I will select this group and I will go to the role assignments. Sorry, not to the role assignments. I want to add role assignment. What I want to do, I want to add somebody to the Windows Admin Center administrators, to exactly this group. And what I want to add is a member in this group, and this member will be Manfred. This is my user, Manfred at manfredhelber.de. I want to select this user, and this user here is exactly the user that should have the rights to manage the server. I want to review and assign. When this assignment has finished, I can go to the Windows Admin Center. Still says I should be part of the Windows Admin Center Log-On group. Maybe I have to wait a minute, or I could check if I configured everything correct. So I will go to the roles. I will check the Windows Admin Center role here, the configuration of this role, and I want to view the details configuration. I can see the permissions and I have the assignments. Manfred is in this group. I'm in this resource. So it should be possible to connect to the Windows Admin Center now. It's still configuring something. Yeah. So we have to wait a few seconds. We will not spend too much time here. What I will do, we will come back to the server 13 in a few minutes. I will go to the server, for example, 15. Let's have a look at one of these servers. So servers, and for example, I think so server 15 already has installed the Windows Admin Center extension here. Yes, here I can connect, and we'll come back to the server 13 in a few minutes. Now here I'm connecting to a server, and this server is exactly here a local machine. Let's see this. Here on my demo Hyper-V host, I have this server 13 where we are actually waiting for the installation to finish. And now I connected to the server 15. It's also a local machine. It runs in my data center. It runs on my on-premises. And now let's see what happened here, or what will happen here. Let's go to this machine here. So now I'm connected to the server 15. I can see the server 15, Windows Server 2022 standard, 4 logical CPUs, virtual machine. The server has a pending reboot. I can go to the installed apps and we'll see, okay, this machine server 15, there's an admin center, Azure Connected Machine Agent. I could connect to the registry, and this is all done via the Azure portal. This is the great thing about this new feature here. I'm using the Azure portal to access the Windows Admin Center to manage my local server machines. And this is really the future of management. Let's imagine I want to configure any roles on this machine. I don't have to connect via RDP. I don't have to install a local Windows Admin Center. I don't need the server manager. I just select the feature I need here. So here I can see this is already an Hyper-V host. Maybe I need some additional features. Maybe I want to install things like a Windows Server backup, or maybe this should be a part of a failover cluster. So I could install the failover clustering here. Just click on install. It calculates the dependencies. Mentioned Hyper-V is already there. I pre-configured this. Via yes, the installation starts. If there's a restart needed, the restart occurs, and so on. So this is really, really great. As I mentioned, when we go to the settings, we have the settings for the servers. We have things like the environment variables. We have enhanced session. Here we can see we don't have the Azure Arc section because the server must be Azure Arc enabled to have the capability to use the Windows Admin Center from the Azure portal. So it's not possible to remove this machine. If we remove this machine from Azure Arc, it's also not possible any longer to use the Windows Admin Center management and things like this here. And we don't have the global Windows Admin Center settings. So when I'm going to overview things like this, I don't have the settings with the internet connectivity and the extensions and so on. So there we have some limitations. So we don't have the vendor-specific extensions. I already mentioned this. So let's look back to our server 13. Maybe it has finished so far. And they're still installing something about the Windows Admin Center. It might take a few minutes. So it seems maybe I can try it. This is the server 13. Maybe it will work already. And we can connect here to the Windows Admin Center. And now I can also manage the Windows Server 13, maybe actually with some limitations there, because you see this, the installation is still running, so it's not completely finished. But we have the server 13, we have the OS version, we have the performance data, and we can start managing this machine here from the Azure portal. So both is possible using the Windows Admin Center locally, using it from the Azure portal. When we use Windows Admin Center locally, we don't need an agent on the target servers. When we use Windows Admin Center from the Azure portal, we need the the Windows Admin Center agent installation that is published to the server nodes via the Azure Arc integration that's required as a base requirement for the Windows Admin Center enabled. So great new features if you are testing the latest version of Windows Admin Center, the preview 2020 08. You will find on your Windows Admin Center machine under Control Panel Programs a Windows Admin Center installation. This one here. And if you have a new version of Windows Admin Center, just run the Windows Admin Center installation on exactly this host. So my host is the WAC01. This is my machine where I'm actually located on. Let's see this like this here. This is my Windows Admin Center 01. I'm connected to this URL and the Windows Admin Center is installed there. This is my local management server. If you want to upgrade the Windows Admin Center, there are because you are using a previous version or a preview version, you can just run the setup of the later Windows Admin Center version, and the previous version is upgraded, including all the settings. This is the usual way. As always, you should create or run a backup before you run upgrades like this to ensure that your settings are absolutely safe. So in place is an easy thing since a few versions. And if you want to change anything on the Windows Admin Center setup, you can use the change option here. Just click on it, change the Windows Admin Center setup. So for example, you can renew the certificate for the website via this change action here. So Windows Admin Center, great tool. If you are not using it on a daily basis, my recommendation is to install it on your environment, on your environments to be prepared for the future management of Windows Server, of Azure Stack HCI, and of hybrid services. If you are interested in these new technologies and especially what's possible with the Windows Admin Center, my recommendation is to join the TechTalk again next Monday, because there we are talking about Azure Kubernetes services on Azure Stack HCI. It's one of these great exclusive features for Azure Stack HCI, the Azure Kubernetes services. And if you never used it, if you are not familiar with container technologies, you will learn everything you have to know about this next week, Monday, same time in the Tech Talk, where we talk about Azure Kubernetes services on Azure Stack HCI. So feel free to use the remaining few minutes to send in your questions via the chat if you have questions to other Microsoft topics like licensing, migration, end of support, client, and things like this. Feel free to join on November the 29th for our Tech Talk Q&A. This is 1 hour with time for your questions from the Microsoft product ecosystem. In December, we have the focus on Azure Stack HCI. And if you are actually not using Azure Stack HCI, I recommend you absolutely to join these sessions, because Azure Stack HCI gets more and more important. On December the 5th, we have the focus on Azure Stack HCI resiliency. What about cache? What about drives, cluster, stretch cluster, backup options? I'm looking forward to have you there in the Tech Talk on 5th of December. On the 12th of December, we are talking about Azure Stack HCI networking. And on the 13th of December, we have the the Tech Talk Q&A. It's not only about Azure Stack HCI, it's about all Microsoft topics. And on the 19th of December, we have the Azure Stack HCI security. Security features we will talk about there are also available for the Windows Server in the latest version. So Windows Server also provides a lot of new things, a lot of new capabilities regarding the security. And this is also interesting to close with this about the Windows Admin Center update. When you go back to the live demo environment, and when we switch to the security components here, I will go to the security extension. Then I can see I have access to my security capabilities on this machine. These are things like summary. I have my protection history. I can start a new scan. I can schedule a scan. I can configure the real-time protection, and I have also a secured core option here. When I switch to the secured core, I can see here that the secured core status is not available on this machine. This is a virtual machine. Some of these things could be fixed from my side. So for example, the virtualization-based security and the TPM could be configured here. And this is an important part. I had a question about this a few days ago. Windows Server does not require a TPM module, even not Windows Server 2022. But for sure, a TPM module brings a lot of additional things regarding the security and the secure storage of credentials. So the recommendation is to have a TPM module, but it's not required. And if all these things here are green, like secure boot in my configuration, I will have a server that is based on the secured core server standard and that provides all these security functionalities here. Okay, so far about the Windows Admin Center update. Looking forward to have you here next week on Monday about the AKS on Azure Stack HCI overview, Azure Kubernetes Services on Azure Stack HCI. So see you next Monday. Thank you for your time. And I'm still available for about 3 minutes in the chat for your questions. So if you have any questions, send them in via the chat. And I wish you a nice day, a good rest of the week, and looking forward to see you next Monday for the next Tech Talk. Bye.